Welcome to Soul Archaeology, an established podcast riding high on the wings of a brand new name, where we uncover who we've been, who we are, and who we're meant to be. Today, we're asking, is there such a thing as being too zaftig to be Zen? Too plump to be peacemakers? Too large to be light workers?
Yeah. So does one size fit all? I don't think it does.
I mean, it couldn't possibly.
No, and especially not in the spiritual community. But it seems like just as we've been spoon fed that same idea through a lot of other communities, it's what's cropping up right now as well. And I think it's been happening for a while, but at the minute that spirituality started becoming more mainstream, I think it kind of got that little glossed layer of, this is what you're supposed to look like. It's supposed to be that, you know, full fitness lifestyle, the
Yoga
the
body.
thin yoga body. But even what is a yoga body? Because I know I think it was around 2015, I discovered Jessamine Stanley, who
Mm.
is a phenomenal yoga instructor who is full figured, and she's been kind of building her own industry, and she's amazing. And I still looked at her and went, girl, how are you doing that? Like aerodynamically, how are you doing that? But at least it gave me the idea that, it's just like anything else. You use what you have and you adapt it to whatever it is that you're doing. It doesn't mean that it's impossible or that it's wrong if you're trying to do it. It's just about, you know, having the mindset, first of all, that it doesn't matter what size I am. I can do whatever I want to do within reason, and if I have limitations, I can always work towards increasing those limitations.
Increasing those
So,
limitations? Decreasing those
oh,
limitations.
sorry, decreasing those limitations, increasing what I can do.
Right.
Um Increasing my abilities rather.
Right.
So, yeah, but it's been on my mind lately. I kind of got triggered by another individual, gosh, maybe a month or so ago on Instagram. And yeah, she was really cool, and I saw a message of hers pop up, and it was really neat, and I definitely needed to see it at that point in time. Her name was Kristina Jones, and she's another light worker. She also does sound healing and shamanic work. She's also a medical intuitive, and she just put up a really cool post about, hey, if you think that you can't be this kind of spiritual figure because you're a certain body type, that I'm putting this post out there to you because we all need to remember that it takes all types.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I know that's something that actually came through for us in one of our last sessions, one of our last regression trance sessions.
Sure.
The entity that we were speaking to gave that information as well.
Yeah, if you're new to the show and you're wondering what Jamie's talking about, recently we did a trans channel session where we spoke to a higher dimensional being who was very kind to answer all of our questions. And among those questions, I asked about physicality and body type. Like, why are some people fat? Why are some people thin? What's the deal with that? It has to have some sort of meaning, because that's where it came up for me. Was it's just like, in our society, you look a certain way and it means a certain thing. And it's funny the way I said that, because it's still true. The answer is in what I just said. It's just more inclusive. And what she said was that different physical forms hold and anchor different energy. And
Yeah.
it was such a beautifully simplistic answer. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, it had never occurred to me before, even though I could give that answer were the question not about weight. Weight is such a
Mhm.
triggering subject for me, uh, that I had to ask and hear externally the answer, because when we are so sort of laden with all of the um, viewpoints and perspectives of society and the collective as a whole regarding these things, man, you can't see the forest for the trees anymore. so so when she said that, I was
No.
like, well, shit. Duh. Like, that
Right?
why did I not get that? Well, I didn't get it because I was too busy trying to be something else. I've always tried to be something else
Yeah.
physically. I had all of my friends were 6 foot tall and bean poles. You know what I mean? And they were all, I felt invisible for so long.
Mhm.
And then feeling invisible evolved into just wishing I were invisible because I didn't like how I looked. I didn't know how to dress for it. And even when I did know how to put myself together, I still felt like I was always playing second or third fiddle, depending on who I was with. And granted, that's all stuff that needs to be healed inwardly, but it helped to hear a being not of this planet say, you are anchoring different energies. You have to have a different physical form. It's not without reason that your body is
Yeah.
short and squat or wide and fat or whatever your deal is. It's not a coincidence that you're dealing with that. You came in and you chose that body because you knew that body would serve a specific purpose for you. And
And I
again,
think
it's
that's
like a
especially so. Yeah. I completely I hear you. That's like what I thought of when I heard that was that, we tend to get this mindset that it's wrong. I'm wrong.
yeah.
I'm wrong for being this way, and I have to change it in order to achieve this level of greatness, of stepping into my full potential. And what we forget is that we are actually in that moment of reaching that higher potentiality in each moment. And there's no reason why you cannot reach that moment's fullest potentiality in the body that you're in. You wouldn't be
Hmm.
in the body that you're in if that wasn't the case. And it's hard to take on that mindset when you're constantly being fed a picture of, but you should look like this.
Right.
And I feel like there's a lot of healers out there right now, and I've been in this same boat, that have this kind of imposter syndrome, because as the you're working with two different things here. You're happy because the field is widening, the gate is opening, more people are entering into this world of acceptance that, spirituality means a whole boatload of things, and that there are different opportunities to be experienced, and people are starting to open themselves up to that. So this part of it is amazing. However, it also comes with some interesting expectations from the people that are walking in, who are experiencing things from a viewpoint of, this is what the new health lifestyle looks like. This is a part of that. This is a part of going to the gym and juicing and being whatever, the fad diet is this week. And, I
Juicing.
have to add in these, well, I'm just thinking about all of these things that have been kind of that, this is the hot new thing.
Juicing
Are
is the
you,
hot new thing
it's been a thing
from
for
the
a long
70s?
time.
Sorry.
But think about how many juice bars do you see now?
Well, yeah, but we've seen
It's a
juice bars
big
for
it's a
20
bigger
years.
thing. Yeah, but it's super popular now.
Hmm.
And it's become a thing where you're seeing more people, promoting it online, on social media, things like that. So I'm looking at all of those elements, and what gets wrapped up into that is a mental image of what the person who is doling out these services is supposed to look like. And I think what has transpired is that the new thought of what does a spiritual teacher look like? What does an appropriate healer look like? They're supposed to look like they're, on the cover of a magazine. They're supposed to look like a yoga master. And what does a yoga master look like these days? Is it a very, young, thin, uh, tanned, perfect bodied person? It hasn't always been,
Mhm.
but is that the picture that we're all trying to live up right now? And I feel like it is. Even when I'm going in to create social media posts, and I'm using the same apps that everybody else is to create those posts, and I'm looking for photos or videos or things to help me create content. When I type in something like meditation, I'm getting silhouettes of a bunch of 20-year-olds that are, the size of my pinky finger, in some sort of namaste.
Mhm.
And it's like, not that I'm angry about that. But it is piquing my awareness. It's making me aware that that is the picture that we're presenting to people, because it kind of, the same image that we used through, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, now has this new veneer of spirituality just kind of lightly layered over the top of it, but it's the same image.
Sure.
And the post by Kristina just really triggered that in me, that wow, that is something that's in the back of my head. That is something that I carry even when I'm not uh even when it's not fully in the front of my mind, it's lingering back there somewhere.
Sure.
I know that I'm wondering, when I'm in the middle of a sound bath and doing my thing and holding space and connecting, I know in that moment I'm not concerned about what my body looks like and what my face looks like, and how contorted and weird I might look. uh but I know that somewhere in there is a part of me who's aware of that, and is probably trying to compensate for whatever I feel is unacceptable because of that, like, societal layer.
Yeah.
And I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay that that's in the back of my mind somewhere, that somewhere that is triggered within me, because I feel like some way, somehow, that is holding me back or keeping me from giving my 110%.
And of course it is. How could it
So,
not? Because you've basically, where you
yeah.
are sensing that, you're telling yourself in not so many words that that's where you've given your power away. Someone else has control over you
Mhm.
in that area.
Mhm.
And anytime you are trying to please someone else by being less of who you are or hiding who you are, that's what's happening. You're giving your power to that idea, that belief, that entity, that person. That's how we end up
Mhm.
in terrible situations. And we know that now. We've come a long way. We've healed a lot of stuff. And now the physical stuff is coming to the forefront, perfectly timed as always, given your journey and mine.
Mhm.
Um, and it makes sense that this is coming up. But I will tell you that when whoever we were talking to, I think her name was Anasu. I think I said it
Mhm.
wrong during the time when I closed out. I was like, Hansu, what? I couldn't even think. Anyway, I still find that funny. Um, Anasu, when she said that physical forms anchor different energies, I was just like, bling. Oh, duh. Like, so I really was meant to look short and kind of built like a brick house, and like I was never meant to be
Yeah.
willowy and fluid and lanky and long. And that's what I always wanted to be. And
Yeah.
not to say that I haven't over the years managed to, if not fall in love with, learn to accept and love my physical form.
Yeah.
I absolutely accept and love my
Same.
physical form. However, there are still voices that are not mine within me that hamper that acceptance and love.
Sure. Sure. I totally get that. And it's also not to say that it's okay to continually shift what that form looks like and is capable of.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're both on journeys to that right now in different ways, but I think that's also important to note because you get kind of caught up in I am supposed to be this. I'm supposed to be carrying a banner and waving a flag for this specifically, for this specific type, for this specific look, for this specific thing. And I feel like, we kind of put ourselves at a bit of a deficit when we stay so committed to that we can't allow that to be as malleable as any other kind of
Energy work.
anything else in our life,
Yeah.
really.
Well,
Yeah,
it's that's the thing, is that we
you have
don't.
to allow that to shift and change.
Yeah, and we don't relate our physical forms to our energy work. We don't relate it to the healing. We think it's something that needs to be healed, but healed in that sense often means corrected, which is not healing at all. It ends up being the
No.
opposite of healing. So it's tough, and I can tell as we're talking about this, as I'm searching my feelings, that a lot of these messages are coming through from a very early version of me. They're coming through from fourth grade me. They're coming through mostly from seventh grade me. She talks a lot when this subject is brought up.
Mhm.
She was the beginning of the invisibility curse that I propagated in my
Mm.
life in order to stay safe. And she also, even though in seventh grade I had lost a lot of weight for a child, but I was in the school play, and my parents wanted to be sure that I felt confident. And so I ended up losing a lot of weight as a result, but I never felt like everyone else, that I looked like everyone else. And that's all I wanted, was just, why can't I be her? She's so skinny and pretty, and everyone thinks she's pretty, and I don't think anyone thinks I'm pretty. And that seventh grade me is still in there to a certain degree. And the first step
Sure.
to shifting that is figuring out, oh, I hear you. Oh, you're okay. Little girl, you're fine. We'll get through it together. It's going to have to be a give and take, a little bit of accepting who you are even then,
Mhm.
accepting who you are right now, and also working on it too, because like you said, these things can be shifted. It's just I'm still a little bit I'm curious, but I also am suffering a blind spot where it comes to the journey regarding shifting it.
Sure.
I've I've had some insight recently, but I still feel like there's some damage in there that keeps me from seeing clearly my way, not just to physically changing it, but to achieving a clearer self-image. Like, is it possible to resolve the dysmorphia?
Yeah, I get that question, and I think a lot of us are in the same boat, and I think it starts with, first of all, the acceptance of exactly who you are, exactly where you are in this moment, and understanding that what you are in this very moment is important, no
Yeah.
matter where you're at, no matter how you're feeling. If you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like you're, not the right size, or not the right anything, it's important to realize that where you're at right now is important, because there's a particular type of energy that's being allowed within you in this moment that is a possibility for change at any moment in the future,
Mm-hmm.
and is also working on that energy of the past. You're melding things together right now, and it's a growth time. It's a huge growth time for everyone right now. But I know in my head, as I think about my own journey, and for those of you who don't know, I'm going to be going through bariatric surgery in, goodness, like under 2 months
Wow.
at this point,
Wow.
which is crazy to think about. And I've been on this journey basically since last December.
And I mean, it's really crazy to think about, especially since when it was first posed to you by the doctor, you were like, absolutely not. No,
Yeah.
no, no.
Yeah, it wasn't on my radar
Uh,
at all.
it
I
was
was like, I don't,
it was on your
I'm not down
radar.
for that.
You were completely resistant to
Yeah,
it.
I was
That so
completely
it was
resistant
on your
to it.
radar. You were just like, absolutely not.
Sure.
You had already leveled the
Absolutely not.
gavel. And that changed really quickly. All you had to do was go in and start researching on your own behalf and talking to your guides. I think
Yeah.
that whole exchange you had with your guides um about the surgery is really important because
Yeah. Well,
you because well,
they showed me what I had already been preparing for, that I had already been preparing for it, that I had already
exactly.
made a handshake with it.
Yeah.
And once that was in my face, it was like, oh, well, crap.
Like it's actually the right road to take. And part of the reason behind being so absolutely not about it, being in such resistance, is because bariatric surgery in and of itself not only comes with a bunch of horror stories from past experiences
Mm-hmm.
that you've heard about, but it also carries that same sort of dysmorphic distortion with it
Mm-hmm.
that the rest of the health or anti-health industry carries, which is um, you feel shame if you're fat, and you feel potentially extra shame if you're fat and the only way you can take care of it is through surgery. It's like the easy way out, which is far from the truth, but
Anything
that's
but.
the sort of yeah, that's the sort of image
Yeah.
we get, that oh, that's what lazy people do.
Well,
It's
and not
judgment.
only is that, yeah, and not only is that judgment very real and very present within society, the other portion of that becomes, I've been carrying the banner for this body type for so long, trying to speak a message of body positivity, and we can all, do what we do no matter what size we are. Then that it becomes, am I selling out? Am i uh am I walking away from the community that I've been trying to be a part of
Mhm.
by having the surgery done?
And I think that that's such a
And
gaslight. I think that's a total
mm-hmm,
gaslight. I think
and it
body
definitely is.
positivity is such a crock of shit. Let me say it again. Body positivity is a crock of shit. And I feel very strongly at this point, because it's like welled within me like a wave of rage, because we shouldn't be promoting body positivity. We should be promoting body self acceptance. And the problem with body
Sure.
positivity is it may have started out by people trying to say we accept you, but the truth of the matter is that body positivity has now sort of passed from the realm of new term with burgeoning meanings to marketing ploy. And once it passes into the realm of marketing ploy, just like the yoga body is now acceptable for light workers, and only looking like that is acceptable for light workers or energy workers. Now body positivity is only acceptable for fat people who are trying to plead their case. Fight me. And I don't think it's meant that way by the majority of us who would be championing such a cause. However, I think that this is one of those instances where the word is defined one way by people who haven't needed to experience it in order to free themselves of the fetters of social demands. And it's experienced a different way by people who have needed to promote that on their own behalf. Um, and I
Sure.
think that it has now become a term that I feel dampens discernment. So people can say, you need to be more body positive, that and inclusive, the term inclusive. You mean well, but is inclusivity really inclusivity anymore? Or is it just a term that we use to bully people into accepting what they really don't want to accept? And is it doing us any good to use that word if the people that we're using it with sort of feel shamed into behaving the way we would like them to behave, but don't really understand and are unable to own what it actually means? Like, we're losing the deeper meaning of these movements by putting them on banners.
Sure. And as much as I understand and get and agree with what you're saying, I still have that reaction physically of, wait a second, what are you talking about?
Right.
Because I identify in my own way with those terms, and they mean something different to me than how they're portrayed in society. And I think a lot of
Exactly.
people are going to have that same reaction.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, I can also understand where you're coming from, where you're seeing the very marketed, capitalized version
What I'm seeing
of
is
what
not
those things have become.
it's not just about the marketed capitalized version. What I'm seeing is the gorge that is widening between those people who believe so strongly in the legitimacy of those terms versus the people who are now using them to market with. Because what happens is when these gaps in communication form in our society, we think we're speaking the same language. And so we start using those terms as flags or markers to guide ourselves. What I'm trying to say
Sure.
is, now that it has become trendy to be inclusive, now that it has become trendy to uh, be body positive, be careful and stay awake. Don't think that just because your terms are now accepted in the mainstream, that they are your terms still. Once things head into the
Or that they mean
mainstream,
the same thing in the
they're
society
distorted.
that
Yes, they
the
don't mean the
yeah.
same thing. So make sure that when you are using your words, you understand that the people you're using them with likely do not have the same definition as you do. They don't mean the same things to those people.
Well, and the same thing goes with spirituality on a whole. Just the
The
term
same
even
thing goes for
spirituality.
everything. It goes for
Uh,
the word love. It goes for the word
Everything.
success.
Yeah.
Everything. Everyone has their own experiences of these things. And a thin person's experience, no hate, just someone who has a different body type, is not going to have the same experience of body positivity that you do, who have been traumatized in certain
Yeah.
ways for looking a certain way all your life. It's not going to mean the same thing. That doesn't mean that terms like body positivity are not a starting point. But I feel that if you're going to have a
Mhm.
conversation about body positivity, you also need to recognize that body positivity, even though it's a new movement, relatively new, it's already developed its shadow. It was birthed with a shadow. And this is the shadow that nobody talks about.
Sure. So, how do you feel, like, what would you say as far as advice on how to move forward and kind of search within yourself? And then what kind of terms do you use? How do you talk about it? How do you talk about it and still stay authentic? And how do you combat what's out there in the world? What is your advice for that?
I don't listen to the world, I listen to my inner voices. My inner voices in the past that are coming up as a result of this journey to find out physically who I am and who I'm meant to be did listen to the
Hmm.
world. So now the healed aspects of me are constantly parenting those former aspects of me that have not healed yet. And that is lacing together this new version of myself as I stand in this moment, who is so much more holistic in her views of the world. I don't pay attention to what is going on in society for the most part because I have no control over that. And I feel that the more attention you pay to your external environment, the more likely your external environment will gain some control where you didn't know it was going to. Like you have a blind spot. And if you listen too much and too closely to your external environment, what you are taking in on social media, it really starts with a mental diet. What are you taking in on social media? What are you taking in on the news? What are you taking in from your friends when you go out to the clubs, to the restaurants, to whatever it is you guys do? What are you taking in? And who is it speaking to you? Who is it speaking to internally? Because I guarantee you, it's not speaking to the you that's in that moment. It's speaking to 3-year-old you. It's speaking to 10-year-old you. It's speaking to 13-year-old you. It's speaking to whatever you're healing, including weight, wherever those issues cropped up. That's the you it's speaking to. Whether it's overhearing your parents talk late at night about how concerned they are that you're getting fat, been there, done that. Whether it's hearing your grandparents talk about, we're concerned about Heather's health. Is she okay? Because she's looking a little chunky. By the way, at this point, looking back at pictures, I was in no way, shape, or form chunky. I was just built that way. Newsflash, I was not overweight. Didn't know that at the time. And there's
Mm-hmm.
still a part of me in there that when I see certain standards projected on things that I relate to, such as energy work, light work, insert spiritual cliche here work, um, it affects the seventh grader in me who was trying so hard to fit in. It's not affecting me now. So the
Mm-hmm.
me now that's healed listens to that part of me. And if I don't know what part of me is triggered, if I haven't gotten that far yet and I find myself triggered, then I sit with the trigger. I've taken in that external feedback, right, from my environment. And immediately I flush and my heart races and I can feel all these physical signs of ick, like whatever I just experienced triggered the hell out of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I cut myself off from that situation as quickly as possible. I excuse myself. I make an excuse that I have to go do a thing. I flip them off and walk away. Whatever I'm going to do in that moment, triggered me handles it, and I escape from that situation. However, upon escape, healed me comes in and says, "Okay, now let's talk about it. Where's it coming from? Who's speaking? What do you relate this to? What in your past are you feeling now that you haven't healed yet?" And this is my practice on a daily basis. This is how I have overcome some incredibly severe trauma in my life by being of two minds, the healed mind and the unhealed mind, and recognizing that that's just a continuation of the work, regardless of what area of your life it's in. That's just what you're going to do.
So from my perspective, it feels like it's not so much in just use choosing to either use or not use the terms. It's just when you go to do that, ask yourself which part of you it is that is speaking. Is it the unhealed part of you that's speaking, that's still attached to all of the societal BS, attached to all of those feelings? Or is it the healed portion of you that is trying to speak about that process of coming into a place of healing and coming into a place of acceptance? And how are you portraying that to the people that you're speaking to? Are you using it as a tool to help continue the healing, or are you just buying into the quick hashtag of it all?
Right, but
I
there are some,
guess.
yes, you're correct. I agree with you there. But there are some little nuggets in there that may go unseen by the greater community, such as there's a difference between healing yourself and helping others to see how they can heal themselves and interact with their environment in a healthier way. If you are using terms like I never said don't use the word body or the words body positivity or promote
Hmm.
the movement in your own way. What I'm trying to say is the key to communication, regardless of what you're communicating, is understanding how it's being received. So it requires an awareness of your environment, not just, and this is why, quite honestly, I don't really go on promotional gigs. Like I don't champion causes. Um, I just don't do things like that because I feel like everybody, unless people ask me, of course, if someone asks me for advice, I will certainly 100% give my opinion in the best way possible. However, my main point of awareness when I am interacting with my external environment, be it people or animals or situations, I am my first priority is being aware of how I am being received in that environment and having a conscious dialogue in every moment of whether or not it is nourishing me or depleting me, and constantly asking myself, how much do I have to give in this situation versus how much do I want to give? I'm constantly monitoring my own parameters in that situation. I am not waving a banner for any cause. I have my own beliefs. They are very staunch beliefs, but they are not unchangeable. I try to remain fluid in my beliefs because I don't know everything. I don't know everything. And sometimes I feel like I don't know anything. And sometimes when we are talking on this show, I feel like I'm saying, fuck all. I'm not saying anything. But hopefully, whatever words fall out of my face in whatever mood I'm in, it helps someone out there. That's the agenda that I'm promoting. If fuckery comes out of my mouth, maybe it is fuckery that will help someone in the future. That's all I can hope for.
Sure. And I get that. And I think for me, I've learned that all I can do really to help others, and this will be, from now and until eternity, is share where I'm at right now. And because it helps me to ground in wherever I'm at that moment. The sharing, the doing this podcast helps me to better understand me first and foremost. And then my hope is that by me sharing that process, I am also helping others to connect with that same thing within themselves. It's like I'm sharing a personal check-in moment. I'm
Mhm.
sharing where I'm at right now, what I'm going through. It's a way for me to hear myself
Sure.
first,
Advice,
just by putting it out there.
giving advice is always that. When people give other people
Yeah.
advice, they're checking in with themselves. And here's the something
Mhm.
came to me the other day. I don't know if I can say it as succinctly as it came through because of course I didn't write it down in the moment. But it was something along the lines of stop trying to drive my car from your car. You be in your
Yeah.
car. I'm over here in my car because when people give you advice, they're giving you advice 100% from their own experience. It's impossible to give advice from anywhere else. No matter how
Yeah.
educated they are, it has gone through all of their personal filters, which were created from the time they were born onward. And so all of that maybe neutral information is going to come back out at you through that person's experience, which may or may not be helpful for you. And I find that the more unhealed people are, the more they will give you advice out of the basis of their own fear. And nothing can mess you up quicker than taking advice based off of someone else's fears. Fears you didn't have before, suddenly you have them
Sure.
now because here this unhealed person has come along to give you advice. Thank you, unhealed person, for making me afraid of something I didn't even know existed. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. However, just having the knowledge that this is how people work is enough to allow you to temper their words on your own behalf. That old saying, take it with a grain of salt, that's what that is. It's
Mhm.
tempering someone else's words and allowing yourself, permitting yourself to either toss them out like garbage, take what's useful and leave the rest, or completely follow whatever they say. You get to decide. I'm not promoting an agenda here other than staying conscious in every moment. No matter who's giving you advice, no matter what perspective crops up, ask yourself how it resonates, where it resonates, why it resonates. And when you do that, then you can go forward knowing at the very least, no matter how you're interpreted, that you are right with how you think and how you believe. And that's all you're going to need. You won't need other people to get your body positivity stance, because you'll no longer be identifying with an agenda. Because the danger of identifying with an agenda is that it feels good to identify with something that's bigger than you. And you end up becoming a champion of that agenda. And that means that you're no longer, in all forms, a champion of yourself.
I can see that. Just letting the word soak in for a moment.
I love that.
And I will say, in addition to that, I've also seen moments where I think, depending on where you're at, also be aware that you may be receiving that information differently from how it's intended, of course, which is a part of what we've been talking about,
Yeah.
depending on where you are at. I'm still seeing quite a few individuals, and I think this is kind of part of the issue here, is that we're not necessarily in a mindset always of looking at other people's advice as, oh, that's triggering something within me. That speaks to me in a particular way because it's bringing something up for me that I need to look at. Sometimes it's registering in a place where we are going, oh, so those are the rules for that. Let me write those down and make a list so that I can follow those exactly, because I'm so lost that I need a map. And you don't realize that we all create our own maps,
Right.
and you cannot follow somebody else's map. Somebody
So
else's map is going to lead you to not a place where you want to go.
exactly.
it's,
Yes.
it's going to be like the worst kind of Google Maps redirect
Right.
ever.
Yeah. You will end up in the bottom of
You
a
cannot get
lake.
there from here.
You cannot. You cannot. You
You
have to
cannot get there
take,
from here.
you have to understand that everything you're taking in, regardless of the source, you are taking it in and it changes the instant you take it in. It is no longer what that
Yeah.
person said. It is no longer what that person meant. It is what you feel about it. And if you're not
You've
paying
applied your own
attention,
filters.
you absolutely have. And there's so many filters, and most of these filters we're completely unaware of.
Yeah.
And the only purpose for intake to begin with, for taking in other people's advice or words or vibes or emotions, the only reason we take them in to begin with, generally it first starts out because we're trying to control our external environment to stay safe. That's the initial, that's how we grow up. We grow up learning to take in our environment so that we can keep ourselves alive. And that's the ego. Then when you start to heal all your inner crap, because you realize if you don't, you will die anyway. You will want to die, and if you want to die, you might as well just be dead at that point. You got to fix it. So you realize you got to fix it, and you start healing, and the ego starts to play second fiddle to this sort of higher version that you're tapping into, who is kinder and gentler and more nourishing and more loving. Um, Completely forgot where I was going with this. There were way too many words in that. Yeah, I lost it. I have no idea
But
what I was doing.
I think the overall message in that is that ultimately the remaining conscious throughout this process is the biggest gift that you can give yourself,
Yeah.
and the best gift that you can give everybody around you. And understand that it is a process and that it's ever changing. And that once you do have an awareness, it's like, okay, well, now I'm aware of this thing that's happening. Then it's how do you want to deal with that awareness? Are you just going to react, or are you going to give yourself some time to sit with it and really um allow it to do all the triggering it needs to do, and observe all that triggering.
Mm-hmm.
Observe all that triggering like you are a third party observer going, ah, okay, okay, I see what you're saying, and I see what you're saying. And you both have good points, but I can see where this side a little, and I can see where this side might be a little too far this way. And let's, where do we meet in the middle? Where's the
Mm-hmm.
balance point of all of these different things that are going on? Can we see a balance point? Can we see a reason for all these things to be happening? Are we going to be angry and just be angry? Or are we going to put a pause on that, accept it and acknowledge that anger, but then pull back from it and say, okay, but that anger is coming from this space. And so then what can we do to help out that version of me that's stuck in that space? Can we help that version of me get out of that space so that they're not so angry and miserable? It's like, because that's a lot of energy being expelled. Whatever you're deciding to put all of your into, which we all have it, it comes out, it comes up, we need to deal with it, we need to acknowledge it. It doesn't help to suppress that, but it also doesn't help to remain in that either. So, you know, giving it full attention, but also seeing where you can transform that and allow it to continue to shift and evolve into whatever the next level of dealing with that is going to be. And I think overall, for this particular subject, I think just that one Instagram post really helped me to understand that it was still something, one, that was bothering me. It triggered me because it was bothering me. Somewhere in me, there's still this era of imposter syndrome. And I know that that is something that I am going to have to sit with and deal with no matter what size I am. Because there's also going to be a time in the very near future where I am not going to be where I'm at right now, but I'm going to look in the mirror and I'm still going to see
That's what I was just
that
wondering
previous
about.
me.
Yeah, yeah. Because there's always ways for that to crop up. If you have been heavy set all your life and suddenly find yourself succeeding at weight loss, be it through surgery or whatever, are you going to be in a position? Have you healed enough of your inner voices to allow yourself to find that as a success? Do you have the internal programs right with the physical changes to allow you to look in the mirror and feel proud of your accomplishments? Because sometimes when we go on a weight loss journey and we succeed at it, that weight loss journey never ends. We can always do more. And I know for me, the last time I went on a weight loss journey, I was highly successful. I was hitting the gym. I was a gym rat for all intents and purposes. And I really succeeded. But when I looked in the mirror, I was still, words like petite did not come to mind. Words like zaftig came to mind. Words, because that's what my mom used to call
Mm-hmm.
me when I was little. And I knew it was just code for fat.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I looked in the mirror,
Yeah.
and especially when I hit a plateau that I couldn't seem to break through, that ended it for me. I was done. I'm like, why am I putting so much work in if I'm never going to get to be where I want to be? And then I went and set to being depressed, and then the weight came all back on. So you have to get to a mental
And
place
you
that
realize,
supports your
yeah,
success.
yeah. And you realize that really is the trick, that the battle isn't in your physical appearance. The
Mm-mm,
battle is in the idea that you have held on to in your mind of what that physical body represents to you.
mm-hmm.
And
Not even to you, to
you have to ask
others.
yourself,
I
well,
don't
to
even,
others, but
I don't even know
informed
if
by
it's
others, but then go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't even know if most of us have
Just go
gotten
ahead.
to the point where I don't even know if most of us have gotten to the point where we have enough of ourselves regarding the topic
Mhm.
to have an informed point of view or to know what that means to us.
Sure.
I don't think we've ever been allowed to have it mean anything to us other than what it means to others. So if your whole point of view is informed by
Sure.
what it means to society, you have no self in there. And if you have no self in there, there's no foundation to support whatever success you're on the road to.
Sure. But
Yikes.
that is what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is getting to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that that's what a lot of this journey has been for me. If you're not familiar with the journey of going through bariatric surgery, especially in this time, um, in 2023, in most places, it involves a very long and varied journey of different disciplines all coming together to prepare you for that surgery. It is without a doubt the most holistically driven Western medical backed thing process that I have ever been through. And I think that's the only reason why I have stuck with it, because I can appreciate and recognize fully how holistic it is. And it tackles everything from, the very physicality of being the size that you are, paired with the psychology of how you got to where you are, and helping to put all of those things together so that you are understanding by the time you get there. Hopefully that is the goal, that is the hope, that by the time you actually have the surgery done, you're at least in a place of awareness of how you got to be in that space. Not that it is wrong to be in that space, but that there were several things that have happened along the way to get you into this space. Now, for me, I have also layered in my spirituality, which has taught me there's a very specific energy that I agreed to come in to anchor. And that has been my job. And so this body has supported that and has been a part of that particular task, that particular job. And now I have reached a point that is supported that there is a change, that there is going to be a shift in the energy that I am anchoring in. And the shift in my body is to support that particular new task, new mission, is being supported in my external environment. And so, I'm now looking at all of those things, combining all of those things and understanding, and I'm glad I'm understanding it now before I'm actually going into the surgery, that yes, there are still issues that are being brought up internally about who I am and what gifts I have, and owning those gifts and being okay with presenting those to the rest of the world. um there's issues there that I still need to resolve, and that I know that the surgery is not going to resolve those issues. I have to resolve those issues within my own mind, separate from that surgery. So that is something that I'm currently working on, and I think that's something that a lot of people are working on, or maybe just coming into the realization of, yeah, I still have this idea that because I am not this particular size. Or it may also be triggering for people who have that mindset that, yeah, I'm not going to this person. They don't look like they're healed. What does healed look like? What does healed look like for anybody? Can you tell if somebody is healed or not? What does a healed individual look like? Um, is it the way they speak? Is it an air of confidence? Is it, how many tools they seem to use? Is it, what does their studio look like? What sort of an idea or mental picture informs you of what healed looks like to you? What is that idea comprised of? And if you start listing off those things and they're all very aesthetic, then you need to revisit and ask yourself, why am I only taking in consideration something that's very aesthetic? Why am I not taking a moment? Where am I not open yet? Really is what it would trigger for me.
Mhm.
Because it's not about, for me, it's not about what people look like or what about their studio looks like. It's about what am I feeling from them? What's the feeling that I get? Am I getting something from the heart? Is something opening up right away? Am I feeling magnetized to that individual, or in an energetic way? Does it feel like I'm connected to them, or like I need to be connected to them in some sort of way? And why is that? What part of that is, what in me is being triggered exactly? I like to sit with that question as much as possible before I actually, sign up for something with someone else, so that I can better understand what it is in me that is healing in that moment, that needs the support of that individual. What are they triggering for me that I need to pay attention to? Because ultimately, nobody can heal you but you.
Right.
All a healer, quote unquote, is doing is creating a space in which you can be triggered in a safer way, where you can deal with your things the way you're going to deal with your things. They awaken a consciousness. They awaken an awareness. They're helping to hold a space for that potentiality in you to recognize what is coming up for healing and how that work needs to begin. But you're really the only one who can uh, affect that in any way.
Right. You're the only one
They're
who
just
can
opening a
do the
door,
actual
helping
work.
to open a door.
Yeah, there's no easy
Mm-hmm.
button. There's no easy button. So
No.
if you're going to someone for help because they say, that they can help you, that they can do it for you, or they give you the impression that they'll be doing something on your behalf, you do all the work all the time. Only you can do it. There is no one who can do it for you. So if you have the propensity to be attracted to easy buttons, you might want to rethink that, because eventually you have to figure out that only through being triggered can you eliminate your triggers.
Mhm.
That's the only way it can happen. What?
Or getting angry at a healer because you went to an event or a session and you came out, you're like, I don't feel any different. It's like, well, that's you. It has nothing to do with that other individual.
I agreed to sit here
They put
before
out
you.
whatever.
I agreed to sit here before you, putting out vibes and playing sound bowls, bitch. That's what you got. Leave, take it or leave it. It's completely up to you. Yeah.
It's like, I am creating the space. I am opening up a container. I am holding that with a particular intention, and I am making that available to you. If you choose not to tap into that, or be resistant to it, or whatever the case may be, that does not reflect on me. That reflects on you. It's there is no do this, take this, and be gone with you, you're healed.
Right.
There's also no one and done.
No.
This is a process.
Yeah.
So, it used to drive me bananas when I'd have people come into the shop and go, well, I had my chakras cleared 3 weeks ago. Okay. Well, think about all the things
Fantastic.
that have happened in the last 3 weeks. You're going to have to sit and do that again.
More
And
like,
again,
and when
and
they were,
again.
cleared, what came up for you? Nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Great. I'm sure that worked.
Hmm.
I'm sure that was
Well,
just the one and done that you needed. Congratulations.
it's like you can, and think about what you're feeling during those sessions. It's like if you're feeling really fantastic
Mm-hmm.
during those sessions, what was it exactly that you were connecting with? I can probably guide you towards some of the things that, or some of the reasons why you may have been feeling so great during a lot of those sessions. It was probably because A, you made a handshake with yourself that said, I'm tired of feeling the way I'm feeling and I want to change that. And I am going to see if I can align with something, a different mindset, a different intention than what I had previously been holding. I'm going to give something a chance. And then if you go to a space where someone has laid the foundation energetically of this is an open space, this is a safe space, this is a nurturing space, and I am intuiting into your energy and connecting with the energy around you and trying to help guide you towards a shift in your physical and emotional being, and you have the idea that you're willing to do that, that's something that you also want to do, then you're both making that handshake together. You're
Exactly.
both coming together for the same purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And that is opening an energetic doorway, an energetic pathway for you to receive in a way that possibly you had not before because you had been closed off. Now, whatever happens and takes place once you walk out that room, walk out that door, is on you. Are you going to continue to leave that door open and accept more of that in? Or do you immediately leave, get in your car, and then flip off the next guy that forgets to put on their turn signal?
I mean, technically I do both, but
It's,
I don't see why we
I
can't do
mean,
both.
and I have as well, but you have to remember that every time you're being distracted from that intention, you move farther and farther away from that opening. That opening gets smaller and smaller and smaller and
I
smaller
don't
and
see
smaller
it
until
that
it
way.
closes.
I don't see it that way.
I I
How
do because I've seen it in practice.
Well,
I've
here's the
seen it in
thing.
practice.
Here's the thing.
If
I
you
I
have to keep nurturing that
I absolutely agree with you
or
there.
it does
I
close.
absolutely agree with you there. However, I don't think that we can get into the weeds with the little there's going to be an ebb and flow. Regardless of who you are, regardless of how mindful you try to be, there will be an ebb and flow. And there will be days where flipping
Sure.
off the next guy that cuts you off is just who you are that day. That doesn't mean that you become less conscious of the handshake you made to improve your outlook and shift your perspective. There's room for both. They're not mutually exclusive. And I feel like I would be remiss if I allowed any sort of interpretation to exist where we that might promote bypassing of how we actually feel in a moment. Now, there's a lot to be learned from the person who used to flip people off to the person who still flips people off to this day, speaking for myself. The person who used to flip people off, God, people are so stupid. I hate being out here. I need to move someplace without people, blah, blah, blah. The person who currently flips people off flips the person off and then says, that wasn't very nice. And I go, yeah, shut up. Or, that person had no clue that they were going to affect you in any way. I'm like, yeah, shut up. And I get it. I get it on a deeper level. And none of what I do as a human being on this planet these days is ever without the idea that that's just me being who I am in that moment. I'm constantly aware of that. And I didn't get aware of that by not flipping people off to try and be
Sure.
better.
And I get that. And what I'm saying is there is, because I've seen it happen, there are some people out there still who feel as though I did that thing And that was all I needed to do.
Right.
And now I can continue being who I was previous to that thing
Sure.
without any changes because I did that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like like I like I'm trying to come up with a good very 3D example of where else that happens. Um you're not going to undo all of the trauma that you have held in one session of anything.
No.
And you are not going to help yourself heal or repair or shift that trauma by going back to the exact same mindset that you held previous to that event happening.
But that's where we
It's
differ.
only with a conscious awareness. No, I don't think it is, because it's only with a conscious awareness. Because what you just said
Mm-hmm.
was that I now hold a conscious awareness that maybe that wasn't the most polite thing to do, but I wanted to do it, so I did it anyway.
Right.
That's a conscious awareness
I
that is
understand.
different from what you held
Yes.
previously.
But what I'm saying is that when those people who come in who had their chakras cleared and feel that that's all they needed to do to better their lives, go back to their lives and their lives are show them that that's not all they need to do. That is also part of their cycle. That is part of the ebb and flow. That is natural. And the process will eventually get them where they need to be or not. But the fact that somebody would go to a healer and believe one and done is all I need proves that there is more energy that needs to come in on their, for them through them. They need to channel more energy to support a bigger shift. And that is a process. What I'm
Yes.
saying is that if someone is not ready to accept that the process is long and never ending, then no amount of someone telling them they need to stay conscious is going to translate to their remaining conscious, because they don't even understand the concept of remaining conscious. That's what this whole journey is about. And it's very natural. We don't have to be any more mindful than we are in that moment. You said that at the beginning of the show. That's what I'm trying to bring through is you can tell someone that they need to continue the work and they're going to be like, okay. And they might even think that they are continuing the work while they go off being the same person they've always been without any changes. However, the fact that they had that experience with that healer it has now planted a seed of resonance within them that has no choice but to shift them, whether it's to a degree that we recognize externally, like, oh my gosh, suddenly she's just so wonderful to be around, might not happen. But they, regardless of whether they believe it or not, have gotten what they needed from that session. And it was just the experience of being connected to someone who holds such a vastly different energy or a vastly different mindset. Just being open to that experience is enough in the long run, which there's inevitably going to be a long run. Whether they're conscious of it or not, they're going to be playing the long game, because guess what? You're here on Earth, and Earth is the long game. It's actually the short game, but for a human being's perceptions, it's a long game. And while you're here, there's no choice but to play it.
Sure. And I completely get that. But I would also be remiss if I said, go ahead, keep believing that, that one and done is a thing.
Well, yeah,
Go for
I
it.
think what it comes down to is all we can say is heads up, it's a long game. And whether or not people
Yeah,
take that in is up to them.
it is. But it's also uh I feel the need personally to help trigger that awareness that it is your conscious or unconscious decision that has built the reality around you, and nobody else can shift that for you but you. So
Mhm.
regardless of whatever experiences you've had, it is how you then take that experience, internalize it, experience it, replay it over in your head, make handshakes in one way or another that will either help you to continue that process in some way, which may be very quickly. It may be something that's a big shift that immediately sets a huge chain reaction of events that creates a very big a very quick shift, or it might be a very slow shift. But understand that that is not on that other individual,
Yeah.
that is on you and the choices that you continue to make,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't hold any judgment against. You do however you need to do for you.
Mm-hmm.
But where I'm at is in a place of I just want to bring an awareness that there are these um that energy is important. The energy that you hold makes a huge impact in your life, and a much bigger impact than I think most people realize, and that there is a lot of power uh, within that energy that you hold, and a lot of power that can be accessed from that kind of energy that you hold. So if you're in a place where you start to distance yourself from something that maybe you experienced that was really amazing, and you're starting to feel like, well, that didn't last very long, don't point the finger at that other individual. Take a moment to ask yourself, where is my energy at? What have I been engaging in? What have I been doing? Is it serving me? And do I want to change it? Because only you have the power to do that. And that is helping to shape and inform wherever you're at. And maybe wherever you're at is in a place of, I still have a lot of work to do. I still have a lot of things to be triggered. And so I'm going to continue to be in a place where those things are triggered. And I need to move through that more slowly, because that's where I'm at. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the lesson that I need to learn. And that's the kind of shift that I need right now. That may be the case. I just want individuals to be aware of that,
Mm-hmm.
that is the case, that it is the energy that you're tapping into in any given moment that is informing the rest of your informing and creating at that moment the reality that you exist in.
So, ironically, what you're saying is that self consciousness is the key.
Not ironically, but yes.
It is ironic because if you think of self consciousness as we used to define it, it tied into the weight topic very well, which was I'm completely self conscious. I don't want to be seen. I'm, scared of being fat shamed. These things that used to be my definition of self consciousness. Now, that's what I used to relate to self consciousness. But
Oh, I see
now,
what you're saying.
self
I see what you're saying.
consciousness,
Sure.
becoming conscious of self, is the
Sure.
key to healing even your weight journey.
Sure. It's the shadow and the light side. Everything has it.
Sweet.
Which part of it are you leaning into or talking to today?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my
We
goodness.
did the
That was
thing.
a conversation.
Yeah, that was a really
We did
intense
the thing.
conversation. We did the
That was a
thing.
conversation.
And we have no glossy outro for this brand new named show. So we're going to derp our ways through it. Check us out on social media. We're constantly posting new content, and hopefully it's valuable content, or you'll find it valuable. We're on Instagram. We have a Patreon. I'm sure the links will be somewhere you can find them. And when this show drops, it drops on a Thursday. And every time a show drops, we have a meetup on Discord on that following Saturday to talk about it, or talk about whatever you want to talk about. We just want to get to know you. Yeah, we
Absolutely.
want to get together. Let's hang.
And chime in. Chime in, please. Let us
Please.
know, do you want to visually see these podcasts? Does that interest you? Do you
Ugh.
want to hear from other people? Do you have something important to say and you want to talk to us about it? Do you want to talk to us about it during the podcast? Let us know, because we have new avenues and new ways that we can interact with people, and we're going to be continually checking in with those things and rolling them out as we go along. So yeah, we want to hear from you.
Please.
And I think that's it.
Yep. We'll catch
We're
you next
we're
time.
done. Season 3, episode 1 out. We'll see you next time.